The music, the costumes, the hair. There's only one ABBA. And after decades of going their own way, the Swedish supergroup is back.
Of global fame, but behind the attention lay whispers, untold truths, and questions fans never stopped asking, especially about her. Now, at last, Andersson breaks his silence with a revelation that redefines how we see him and the band's legacy forever. Get ready to discover the truth you never expected. Her song Was Always Playing. Benny Andersson showed a side of his life that no one else knew about when he was 78 years old. Fans have used every phrase and every melody to talk about ABBA's broken marriages for decades. But a different story had been written in secret in his home, away from the news. And it wasn't about fame or money. It was about the woman who held him down when things got dark. That woman was Mona Norklet, and she was the love he found after everything went wrong. Mona never liked being on stage or in the spotlight. Although she worked in TV, she didn't live near the chaos that was Benny's world. She brought him back to normal mornings, quiet dinners, and a life where no one was filming his every move. Benny once said that what she gave him could not be found in stadiums that were packed to the brim. Their love was theirs and no one else's, and her power was in her silence. Fans never stopped guessing who inspired which ABBA song, but Benny's later music told a different story. There were poems about Mona, second chances, and love that held strong instead of breaking apart inside. Most people thought he was still dealing with ABBA's divorces, but those who knew him better knew what he meant. His songs brought a new sense of peace and warmth that had been missing during the years of chaos. He wasn't writing about losing someone anymore. He was writing about finding someone. This difference was important because it showed a side of Benny that wasn't affected by the scandal. The divorces shaped how the media covered ABBA, but they didn't shape his heart forever. There was something about Mona that showed him that life can be better after a breakup. He was weak because of his fame, but love made him whole. Fans hadn't heard this story before, but it explained why his music had been around for so long. In his 78th year, Benny said, "Thank you." He said that Mona had kept him from giving up because of guilt. He might have stayed stuck in the shadows of his past mistakes without her. Instead, he built his future not on the broken pieces of ABBA, but on a stable home. She held him down and kept him making things, not just for other people, but also for himself. One thing that is often forgotten about Benny's later work is how different his solo songs sound from the ones he wrote with ABBA. The big, dramatic songs gave way to softer sounds that showed both age and peace. He said that peace came from having her there. People who heard him may not have noticed, but his songs became less about sadness and more about fitting in. In the gaps between the sounds, you can hear how Mona has affected the music. After Benny's confession at age 78, his reputation was changed. He was more than just a pop genius who made platinum songs out of broken hearts. He wasn't going to let his mistakes write his last verse. Rather, he showed that life can still play a softer, deeper song after everyone stops singing. This is what Mona gave him, a reason to bear with her. There's something strong about this story that goes against the myth of fame. People often think that famous people only think about how great they were in the past. Benny showed that they were wrong by talking about the quiet love that gave his life meaning beyond praise. Not having hit songs was his biggest achievement. It was finding the one person who saw him as more than just an icon. She let him live his life as Benny, not as the hero. Because he told it so late in life, this truth was more important. At age 78, there was no reason to make the past look better or play on people's memories. People had already praised, attacked, and remembered him for ABBA. He now decided to honor what had been most important all along. Because he was so honest, it felt like the best song lyrics he had ever written. From accordion keys to global stages, Benny Andersson was born in Stockholm in 1946, surrounded by a family that breathed music. Instead of giving him the accordion as a toy, his father and grandfather taught him how to play it. While other kids were after games, Benny was after notes, playing tunes over and over again until they were second nature. He was quiet and shy, but music helped him say things he couldn't say out loud. He learned to talk for the first time through the accordion. For as long as he could remember, Benny liked a lot of different kinds of music. He paid close attention to Swedish pop songs, parts of classical music, and even church melodies that stuck with him. What made him stand out was how much he cared about structure, how chords could change how someone felt, and how a simple tune could stay in their mind forever. Most teens were interested in the lyrics, but Benny was more interested in the arrangements. He wasn't just hearing music. In his mind, he was breaking it down and putting it back together again. He was becoming more than just a player because he was so interested in rhythm. In the early 1960s, Benny's skill got him into Sweden's new rock scene. He joined the Hep Stars, who were well known in Sweden and were often called Sweden's Beatles. They topped the charts and played to screaming crowds at their concerts. For Benny, it was his first taste of fame, and he loved playing for so many people. Even though he was excited, he felt disconnected. The lights on stage made the people happy, but he was happier backstage, sitting at a piano and putting together songs after everyone left. This tension showed something more about his character. While many of his friends loved being the center of attention, Benny was shy and felt awkward when he was famous. He found traveling to be boring, loud, and tiring, but writing music gave him peace and energy. He wasn't trying to avoid the attention, but he also wasn't trying to get it. He knew that his strength wasn't in performing tricks that amazed people. His talent was making songs that would last forever and that other people could take into the world. During this time, Björn Ulvaeus came into his life by chance. As a member of the folk group Hootenanny Singers, Björn liked music that felt like it was carefully put together instead of rushed for the stage. When they met, they started writing together almost right away. Their different backgrounds made them better. Benny was spontaneous and melodic, while Björn was planned and organized. They worked together to make songs that were both precise and emotional. What began as a way to work together quickly turned into what looked like fate. Their relationship was more than just a way to save time. It was a meeting of two creative minds that helped each other grow. The songs were often written by Björn, but Benny's melodies gave them life. He had an amazing knack for making songs that were well-known right away, but also fresh enough to stand out. They found balance with each other, which led to something much bigger than either of them could have done on their own. Benny finally found someone who spoke the same language he had all his life. Björn. It wasn't Swedish or English. It was just music. Much of the time, Benny said that music was his real language and the only one he could speak perfectly. He was shy, so he didn't like long talks or public appearances. But when he played an instrument, the hold on him went away, and a voice spoke through rhythm and harmony took its place. Each card had things on it that he couldn't put into words. This fact hinted at how he would show his true self, not in speeches, but in songs that people all over the world would hear. While the world danced to ABBA's Joy, Benny silently faced storms that fame and fortune couldn't protect him from. The women who defined the music Agnetha Faltskog was the calm light in the storm that was ABBA. As a child, she had a voice that could sound both soft and broken. She gave the group its golden, sad sound. Her songs often made me want something, like someone who is trying to reach for something that they can't quite get. That wasn't a mistake. Agnetha's deep feelings came through in the songs. Many people felt like she was telling them their own stories when she sang. The next singer was Annie Frid Lyngstad, better known as Frida. Her sound was very different from the others. Frida was full of fire, soulful, sharp, and full of life. Coming from a tough family, having grown up in the years after the war made her tough. Every time she spoke, that strength came through. Frida could get people to stand up, while Agnetha could make people cry. They made the famous ABBA sound together. Not only did their voices mix, but they also hit each other, making sounds that no one else could match. Behind them were Björn Ulvaeus and Benny Andersson, who were not only making music, but also feeling the things that the songs were about. The result was art that was based on real events that were happening at the same time. That's what made their music so interesting. It wasn't a polished dream. It was really their own lives. It was as well known for ABBA's relationships as their music. No one thought anything bad about Björn and Agnetha's relationship, but Benny and Frida's connection added another level of drama. However, golden did not mean perfect. There were cracks in both relationships, and those cracks quickly turned into the themes of their biggest songs. They didn't hide behind safe lyrics. Instead, they used their own sadness to make pop anthems. Many people say that The Winner Takes It All is Agnetha's best work. Not only was she playing when she sang that song, but it came straight from the end of her marriage to Bjorn. Fans could feel how sad it was, which made it easy to remember. Knowing Me, Knowing You, on the other hand, was about ties breaking down within the band. These weren't songs made in a studio. They were statements with music on top of them. After many years, Benny said that fans weren't crazy. Some truths were hidden in the words of a lot of ABBA's songs. He admitted that tunes were more reliable to him than relationships, which was a quiet way of saying that music had survived every relationship. Benny's best friend became music, which never let him down and was always there for him. He made some of his best work because he was so dedicated to sound. ABBA's peak was marked by this duality: love as both inspiration and destruction. The women not only became inspirations, but also a way for their own power to flow. Agnetha handled her grief with grace, while Frida fought it with fire. They fought their private wars with their voices together, which became the battleground. Behind the scenes, that strain hurt, but it was the songs that made the group better than any other band of their time. Four voices that ruled the world when ABBA took the stage at Eurovision in Brighton, England, on April 6, 1974. Their life would never be the same again. They performed Waterloo with sparkly clothes and a lot of energy. It not only won the contest, but it also changed the rules of pop music. Benny's catchy arrangements and driving piano chords made a strange Swedish entry into a worldwide hit in just 3 minutes. It showed that music could quickly reach people in other countries when the song shot up the charts in London and Tokyo. It was the start of a huge trend that no one, not even ABBA, saw coming. All of a sudden, four Swedish friends were famous all over the world, and people couldn't get enough of them. Fans yelled their names everywhere they went and expected nothing but the best at every show. Behind the shine, though, the group was always under pressure to do even better, to deliver tighter harmonies and more stunning routines. The business world wanted perfect goods, not people who grew tired or broke down under stress. It meant that Benny had to stay up late playing the piano and change things around until every note had the exact shine that everyone wanted. Benny was the unseen mastermind behind ABBA's success. He made sure that every song had more to it than just disco gloss. Because he had studied classical music, his tunes were not only catchy, but they also made people feel things without even realizing it. Songs like Dancing Queen weren't just hits on the dance floor. They were carefully made to make people happy while hiding sad parts. He was the steady hand that turned chaos into beauty, the engine that ran ABBA's golden machine that no one could see. But that weight made him feel alone and stuck in a never-ending circle of work. As the band's fame grew, cracks started to show in their unity. Personal and professional relationships became less clear, and practice turned into a battleground when feelings got into the music. Traveling, being in the center, and rumors constantly put stress on the marriages of Bjorn and Agnetha and Benny and Frida. There were breakups on stage, but they were hidden by sequins and laughs for the crowd. There were times when things were going apart behind the scenes, but everyone still played along as if everything was fine. Fans sang along with ABBA's happy words, but many of their songs were really confessionals dressed up as pop. Knowing Me, Knowing You was about the pain of being apart from someone before anyone else knew that the band members' marriages were ending. The Winner Takes It All sounded like a victory song, but Benny knew it was really a diary of sadness that was meant to be hidden. These weren't just songs. They were secret messages of betrayal, love, and staying emotionally strong. Everyone was dancing, but the band's music was making it hard to hear. ABBA was one of a kind because they were both happy and sad at the same time. Millions of people saw the sparkly clothes, but not many saw how tired Benny looked or how sad Agnetha sounded. There were two stories on every hit record, one that fans heard and one that only the band knew. Benny tried very hard to make sure that the flaws in his music were hidden, but they were still there in the words and melodies. It was like ABBA built a temple out of sound while their personal lives fell apart one piece at a time. Benny had a complex part to play in this situation. He wasn't just writing for the charts. He was writing as he fell apart. He used music to deal with things, but it also held him back because the world wanted more shine, not the real truth. He had to find a way to be honest and still appeal to a lot of people, which was hard. The better the band did, the more alone he felt in his own creative storm. Benny thought fame meant freedom, but most of the time it felt like chains. It was expected that everyone at ABBA's shows would be perfect. Costumes were amazing, lights flashed, and fans left with memories they will never forget. Laughter was often replaced by quiet backstage, and shared moments were replaced by time spent alone in hotel rooms. People around the world no longer believed in togetherness, even though the music kept going up the charts. Benny felt a lot of contradiction as the power grew in public, but fell apart behind closed doors. Fame gave him everything, yet Benny discovered the cost when the applause faded and his inner struggles grew louder. The cost of love, fame, and silence. People often reach the peak of their fame just as it starts to wear them down. This was certainly the case with ABBA. Fans thought that their music would last forever, and that the energy and sparkle on stage would never go away. Behind the scenes, though, there were cracks that stage lights and glitter could not cover. When the group was at the top of its game, its personal lives started to fall apart. What everyone else saw as perfect was slowly turning into sadness. After 7 years of marriage, Agnetha and Bjorn announced their split in 1979. Fans who thought they were those of the group were shocked. Songs that used to make people happy started to sound sad all of a sudden. The Winner Takes It All turned into a frightening picture of their broken relationship, making it hard to tell the difference between work and personal pain. Even though they were no longer married, the show had to go on. After 2 years, Benny and Frida went through the same painful thing. Their marriage, which used to make the group stronger, ended in 1981. This meant that all 4 ABBA members were no longer married, but they were still connected through music. Though there was a lot of stress, they kept playing songs that had sad undertones. Fans thought that ABBA's glitter covered up a storm they couldn't see. In ways that were impossible to miss, the stress made its way into their music as the 1980s started. Some of the songs, like One of Us and The Day Before You Came, didn't sound like they were going to be big hits. Their tunes were still lovely, but the words to their songs were very sad. There was a sense of death in these songs, as if the band knew the end was near. They weren't just records, they were swan songs. Benny felt more than just public sadness during these years. He wasn't proud of how many times he put his job ahead of being stable in his personal life. Fans loved how great he was as a composer, but they didn't understand how much he had to give up to do what he did. Every night he spent away from home, in the studio, on tour, or otherwise, hurt his relationships. In the end, the praise did not fill the void left by the silence. Later, Benny admitted that he felt bad about what he did long after ABBA's show ended. He put everything he had into the music, but he didn't leave much room for the people next to him. Fame brought him wealth, but it put a heavy price on love and friendship. The world loved ABBA's hits, but Benny took the blame in silence. The songs that made him feel broken were the hardest for him to play. But Benny had a secret from everyone for decades, even though it hurt a lot. Out of all the women in his life, one stood out. Even when his fame took him away from her, he always went back to her. In a world that was always calling for change, she stood for steadiness. But for reasons that only Benny knew, he gave up too much of her for music. This new information gave his story a new angle that fans had not thought of before. It wasn't just about the splits or the end of ABBA. It was about the decisions he made when love and ambition came up against each other. He used success as a guide, but it often led him away from what he really wanted. That silent deal scared him more than any split. Most people thought that ABBA had run its course, but the truth was more complicated. The band's breakup was a reflection of the lives that were keeping it together. In every chord of Benny's music, you could hear bits of his sorrow. It's possible that people who used to dance to ABBA's happy songs were actually moving to their sad songs. In spite of all the shine, he was clearly sad. When relationships broke down in ABBA, it was never loud or emotional. Instead, it was awfully real, heavy, and quiet. Each breakup left scars on their music that they didn't talk about. In public, Benny may have smiled, but inside, he carried the weight of what he had lost. Fame couldn't get back what was lost. As ABBA broke up, Benny felt the silence getting worse. It wasn't an excuse that he was on tour or that the studio was full to block out his feelings. The music slowed down, the light dimmed, and the apologies got louder than the cheers. It was in this quiet that his truth could no longer be ignored. The fame was gone, but the cost was still there. It was like a ghost following Benny around as the world went on. The woman he kept going back to wasn't named, which added to the wonder of his story. He tried over and over to cut her, but he couldn't. Even though his heart was torn, he could never stop wanting her. It was the one secret about ABBA that made their fame feel almost sad. The long silence and the return. Benny Andersson didn't try to become famous again after ABBA broke up in 1982. Instead, he started writing plays. His most famous work was Chess, which was released in 1984 and became a worldwide hit. Later came Kristina Fran de Vemela, a very sad book based on Swedish literature that showed a different side of his writing skills. These projects showed that he could make a lot of different kinds of music, not just pop hits. Even though there was praise afterward, Benny chose to stay out of the way. In the 2000s, he put together the Benny Andersson's Orchestra, ABBA, with players who loved Swedish folk and dancehall music as much as he did. ABBA played on small stages, not under the bright lights of stadiums like ABBA used to. Benny didn't want to tour as a pop star. He was happy leading an accordion-driven group. This was happy music, not news music. He could take his time and live his life at his own pace while he was away. What made him stand out was that he chose not to live in the fame bubble. Benny, unlike many people who try to be important, found peace in being alone. He didn't move to London or Los Angeles. He stayed in Sweden and lived close to his workshop. He turned down big comeback offers for years because he didn't want to turn memories into money. He built a life that was more stable and quiet than the chaos of the 1970s could have been. Then there was the surprise meeting. Voyage, ABBA's first album in 40 years, came out in 2021. Along with it came the groundbreaking hologram shows in London, where digital ABBA adders played for huge crowds of people. Fans old and new showed their joy as if no time had passed. For Benny, making a comeback wasn't enough. He also wanted to end a story that felt unfinished at first. Benny had changed, though, behind the music. Rather than numbers or praise, he now saw success in staying alive and being at peace with himself. He became clear after decades of living in peace. When he was 78, he started to think about both ABBA's impact and the one person who had been there for him the whole time. Mona Norklet was that person. She has been his wife since 1981. Mona came into his life while ABBA was already very popular, but she never tried to be the center of attention. She was a TV host by trade, so she knew what fame meant, but she decided not to let it consume her. She kept Benny stable at a time when his fame could have swept him away. For years, she stood by his side and helped him tell the difference between the real man and the myth. Balance was something that her being there gave him that ABBA's fame never could. Benny has said that he might have felt bad about what he did without Mona. After relationships broke up within the band, the breakup of ABBA left deep cracks. His highs and lows were felt more strongly because of his fame. However, Mona gave him time to rebuild, not as a star but as a person. He was able to avoid self-destruction because of her quiet strength. A lot of people don't know this, but Mona had a bigger impact on his art than his fans think. She pushed him to learn more about orchestral and folk music by telling him of the music that had inspired him as a child. She understood how much he loved the craft and made sure he stayed in touch with his family in normal life. His later songs, which had more depth than his earlier hit anthems, were shaped by this balance. In many ways, Mona worked with him without being seen, not just in the studio, but in everyday life as well. Mona stayed out of the spotlight even when ABBA got back together, letting the spotlight fall where it deserved. He was calm, didn't rush, and was able to see the meeting as a gift instead of a burden, all of which were signs of her presence. For fans, it meant that songs would be coming back. For Benny, it meant admitting that the real story of his success was staying alive and being stable. That point of view could only come after years of quiet and thought. The world chased ABBA's past, but Benny finally revealed the hidden muse who truly defined his greatest melodies. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Click on the next video popping up on your screen for more amazing content.